Okay, it is Wednesday, August 11th, 7:06 p.m. I'll call the Economic Development Commission meeting to order. Present are 4 members, myself, Renee Deli, Laura Parker, Sandy Allerhead, and Denise Luciano. So we have a few things on the agenda. The first one is in respect to the new member, Rebecca Murphy, who is not on the call. I know that she said she was going to come, but I want to thank Sandy first for reaching out to her and giving her some information on the EDC, and thank Rebecca as well for joining and taking the plunge with us. Hopefully she'll be able to join a little bit later at the next meeting, but I think that she'll be a great addition, and it'll be nice to have a full commission with 7 members and 2 alternates.
Renee, sorry, can you mention her last name again? I just didn't get it typed in fast.
Murphy, Rebecca Murphy.
Okay.
It's different with your blurred background, Denise. I kind of feel like you're like a pilot operator right now because I can't see clearly. The next topic is for Paul. This was, I believe, Sandy, you had asked to put this on the agenda about what our role is in the master plan and the SERPED items. I think that was in reference to master plan has some responsibilities or were listed under certain sections, right, as having responsibilities. So Paul, we just wanted to have a nice discussion with you on, you know, what you're looking for from the Economic Development Commission, how we can help, what timeline is, if you have that now, and certainly guys add in any other questions that we talked about before that you may have.
Sure, and Renee, can you enable file share or screen sharing?
I sure can.
Because I can just show, I'd like to just go do at first just a brief overview of the highlights of the plan, and then jump into the economic development components to it. And we had a really good meeting last night. So the planning board has had a couple of meetings to review this, because through the charter and through state law, the planning board is the entity that can decide what to do with the master plan. They can either adopt it, or they have the ability to send it to town meeting. And the board has indicated they want to transmit this to town meeting at the October town meeting, which I think is a great idea. So they've had 2 deep dive meetings into this, the last 2 sessions. One was last night and then 2 weeks before. So this version that you see here is not the most up to date, because I just sent the second half of the plan updates to SERPED, who's our consultant. But I expect at their meeting on August 24th that they're going to direct me to submit the plan as a warrant article. So then it'll come back in September to the board for them to refer it to town meeting. So, but they're not the only player involved with this. There's a whole host of other partners that we have and will have. And so just to give you a snapshot of what the plan is, the plan is made up of you can see here 7 elements, plan elements, but you could also think of them as building blocks toward building the community that we want Norton to be in the future. And as you recall, because I know you all were actively involved in participating in our informational sessions, and so those sessions were important because they helped inform this plan. And we need to, you know, we're confident. This draft has been out. We've had public weigh in on it. But getting into the building blocks, one thing I want to mention is, while these are separate, they're all actually they all work together. It's a circle where they all overlap at some point. But the plan itself covers how our land is to be used, and that can involve zoning regulations and things like that. It covers housing, looking at both housing from the context of how we can change our regulations to encourage certain types of housing, and then also seek funding to help with the construction of that housing. And then there's economic development. It's how do we help sustain our existing businesses and recruit more to the town. There's open space and recreation and natural and cultural resources. I mean, that's the preservation end of this. So there's a lot in here about continuing our efforts of purchasing more environmentally sensitive land and expanding on our recreational facilities. And also now services and facilities is an important function. And in fact, we're going to talk about that tonight, because where the water and sewer goes oftentimes is where the jobs and the tax base goes. So there's a big tie-in to economic development. Again, they all do, but that's a huge one. And then there's transportation and circulation, which it's mobility. How do we get around? So how can we become a more walk-friendly, bike-friendly, transit-friendly town? And then make it easier to make it a safer place for drivers. And basically that's it. So let me scroll down here. So it's just a couple slides here I just want to go over quickly. There we go. So there are a couple big highlights here. One is, again, how do we go about preserving our open space and natural resources? You can see here that we have obviously a whole host of properties that are currently preserved, but we're also looking to continue purchasing and acquiring or permanently preserving those areas that deserve protection and should not be developed. But additionally, we're also looking to, this plan also has recommendations as to how we could open up access to these wonderful natural resources, including providing better access to the reservoir and something I know Chris is very interested in, which is the rail trail. And of course, protecting our drinking water supply, ensuring that there's enough water for our future demands, and making sure that it's clean. And finally, as far as the preservation side of it, is to continue to celebrate our history and also look, maintain it, but also as new properties or sites may become available, to get them registered. And along the same lines about continuing more about preserving areas, it's also deals with our neighborhoods. Now, as you know, Norton is greatly a single family community. The public certainly was committed to preserving that, but looking at where more housing diversity could go in appropriate areas. We would do, when we look at issues of promoting economic development or different types of housing, where would we do that that's supportive of the existing neighborhood? And also in support of existing neighborhoods is improving the access for people walking, biking, transit, to help people get around better. And then it also deals with maintaining and upgrading our services and facilities to serve our residents. So, and that would be, improvements to the library. And of course, we took, 3 big chunks of that at the Maytown meeting with the new town hall, the senior and community center, and the ball field. But there's also, so what's important also to mention to the public is that the master plan is the great majority of this plan is about, geographically speaking, is about preserving it and maintaining. And some limited areas like you see here where we would want to promote economic development, or where we might have more intensive housing, placing it on our corridors and so forth. So looking at what we can do to transform our 2 major corridors into more vibrant places. Think about what we're doing already with the Village Center. We want to try to attract new business to town, but also take actions to help support our existing businesses and help them thrive and be more successful than they were even before the pandemic. And then also look at how we can better improve our relationships between the town, our local businesses, Wheaton, other key stakeholders in looking at economic development. So I'm going to skip over this slide here for the implementation table. We'll dive into that a little bit. I mean, depending on how long you want to go with this, but now I just want to just start to show you kind of the meat of the economic development component. And so one of the key goals here is we want to encourage appropriate economic development at key locations with the goal of supporting local businesses, increasing the amount of jobs, and expanding our local tax base. So there's a couple of key actions that we are looking at. I need to just scroll down to another page so we can get a good look at it. But these actions need to support that goal of promoting economic development at the key locations. So, one of the actions or strategies is to pursue additional studies and funding to implement design standards and improvements for identified economic development areas. So when you think about what we did with the Village Center, we created Village Center core zoning, and it was specific to that area. But as we think about future growth areas, what should the zoning regulations look like? You know, we would have a few tools that we could work with. We could do, you know, something similar to Village Center core, just depending on where we're at. Or we could do, there's some other tools that we have available to us, such as, well, overlay districts, which I know you're very familiar with. So there were different types of overlay districts that we could put on top of the base zoning, that if we wanted to see something that they could achieve, you could use an overlay district to do that. And I'm sorry, at any point, if you guys have any questions, just ask right away. So as you can see in the blue box, this is as you know, in working with the public and working with town departments, and that blue box is kind of an important thing, and it correlates. I know I had sent to you or pointed out that there's an implementation spreadsheet at the end of the document. Eventually, when this plan is final, this blue box and that spreadsheet need to match up. So what this blue box is telling us, it's telling us three important things. In order to achieve that strategy, it tells us how much of a priority it is. And so in this case, when we say high and flexible, it means it's a high priority. It's something we need to do. Flexible means that it should be achieved within a little more than, more than 2 years. But it doesn't mean we can't start it soon. So, and then the responsible parties, this is just the beginning of it, but it's us. But we're certainly free to try to bring in more experts to help us achieve these goals. And this is true of any of the actions. So, and then when we see complementary actions, what that means is there are some other strategies that are very similar to it and that will overlap with it. In fact, you'll see this throughout the plan, that there are closely related actions that help make these go. So teams might want to, when this is adopted, use the spreadsheet to help take several strategies at once, or at least start to align the actions that need to take place in order to make that strategy happen. Another big strategy is expanding the infrastructure, such as wastewater lines, to the key locations. And this is a biggie. This is crucial. In fact, we're already starting to see the results of that sewer expansion on West Main Street, right? We know Bog Iron is now staying because not only did they get the parking they needed, they were able to get the sewer. And the great thing for them is now, once they connect to sewer, now their capacity limits, which were set by the septic system, are gone. So now they can get much more business now. And that's the power of getting water and sewer to the right locations, because you don't want to have a septic system causing or not having sewer available in a company that you might have wanted, saying, well, we're too big to run it on septic, and they walk away. But if there's sewer there, that's a big attractor for them. And certainly that is also true with water. I read recently, I was looking at life sciences, and the importance of clean water is really vital to pharmaceutical companies. So here, it's referring to a complementary action, but I can tell you part of that is starting to increase the collaboration from planning, economic development, and the Water and Sewer Commission to help determine where's that next water and sewer project going, and have a conversation that to our thinking, it should have an economic development component to it. I'm just gonna skip ahead here. And again, if you all have any questions, because hearing me drone on, I can only imagine the torture. So the next big goal, again, these are all related, but supporting existing institutions and local business community and the local business community by maintaining businesses and attracting new firms. So while that promotion of the or getting the water and sewer out, and also making sure your land use regulations align, that those are going to help certainly encourage attracting new businesses, and even in some cases maintaining existing businesses like with Bog Iron. But you'll see here that one of the very first strategy you guys are already working on, and that's create a user-friendly development and permitting guide. So congratulations, we've already been achieving the plan. So we gave you a break. We said you can get it done by the end of the year. Denise, I thought
it was done. Denise, didn't you finish that out? Or Sandy, who was doing that one?
Yeah, I have a draft that I need to send over to. Are we still doing the trifold? I think we need to talk about that and whether that still fits in with this goal. Because I don't think what we were doing was really a permitting guide as much.
I was gonna say, I thought that we had some discussion around overlap between that guide and what Paul already has on his site, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still what you're doing helps to achieve this, and it helps to support, it helps businesses to have a guide out and be able to point people where they need to go. Here are the different things you have to work with. So yeah, I think the two work in concert. And the permitting guide, I think the best thing we can still do is point them to the right people. Some of this stuff gets so convoluted, we'd be writing, a novella if we were to do that. But so this is just one example. You're already doing it. Another is implement the placemaking strategy for our village center, including signage. So what this calls for is those strategies such as making it more walkable, but as part of that is improving the signage so people know what's where. So you think about, I hate to use this example because I don't like malls, but back in the day when malls were thriving, you'd go into a mall and you'd see the kiosk and it would tell you this store was in second floor, they'd have the letter and number system or something like that. But this is similar. So these are strategies to help create a sense of place. And not just physically, but it's also programmatic events, well, if Sharon were on the call, the event she did when she was with Parks and Rec. Those are important, really important events to do. And for the Village Center, we'd love to do, I want to coordinate with Brian to see if we can pull off a well, we have to see now with COVID, the Delta variant reemerging, if it's going to make sense for us to do anything. But anyway, there's a number of things that we can do to help enliven some of these areas. And so, again, it's a high priority, but we have some time. We have some, we will have some flexibility as to when we get started. But as you can see, it's planning, it's economic, it's you all, and it's community groups, including business stakeholders and Wheaton and GATRA to help us out. But it's largely incorporating or implementing the village center plan, which was adopted in 2019. And again, includes different complete streets or walking and biking improvements, arts and culture, all of that. I should also point out that there are times where they put in an example success story. We're trying to make sure that they're all local as much as possible. But again, this will be important. And we're already, in a way, doing this as part of the local rapid recovery for the village center. So again, a lot of the activities that you'll see throughout this plan are things we're already doing. It's just there'll be some new things, and then helping us really create a better management model to achieve things. So the third strategy is to update the zoning to encourage more compact development that fronts the street. So particularly, again, this ties back to some of the one of the previous strategies, that as we look at areas to encourage development, we need to make sure that we're putting the right standards and the right uses in place to attract what we'd like to see there. But in this case, with the village center, we paid very close attention to architectural standards that dealt with how close the building is to the street, or really how far back could it go at a maximum, because too many buildings sit way off the street and it just creates this void when you're out there, and it gets into building heights. So as we look at other areas where we'd like to attract more development, we will need to figure out what zoning tool, whether it's a new zoning district or an overlay, will help us achieve that. Sorry. Go back. Oops. Okay, so the next one is attract businesses based on community priorities, such as grocery stores and life sciences. So there's a number of things that we could do there, right? We all know we don't have a grocery store. What are the things that the town could do to try to help attract grocery stores to town, or industries like life sciences, or something else that's of importance to the town? So again, you all play a big part in here, including we need to try to work with Great Woods Marketplace to see if there's an opportunity to change the game, so to speak, and make it a more appealing site there. Another opportunity that might be attractive is the state has an incentive that it expedites the permitting process, which is something I really want to keep an eye on as certain projects start to come forward, that we have this process in place. This expedited permitting process gets approved all the way through town meeting. But what it does is it says that your permits have to be issued within, I think it's 120 days. So that would be a real incentive for a lot of people. So as we're trying to attract certain types of development in certain areas, we would have tools like that to help make it an attraction. So again, you all could play a big role in that, especially with, a lot of the work we're going to continue to do is face-to-face. There's a lot of technical work, but it's really much more about building relationships and connections with the right people to help make these different actions happen. And this is a big one. Yeah, Laura.
In the blue box under performance measure, It's talking about completing a feasibility study to designate the site at Great Woods Marketplace as a 43D PDS.
Yeah, that expedited, that's the expedited permitting.
Okay.
So we've asked them to take away all the abbreviations and vernaculars, and that should hopefully be fixed.
Okay.
But we do love our acronyms, but yeah, that's that's expedited permitting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And then we are looking to continue to promote work from home amenities and co-working spaces. Co-working spaces might be a little bit more challenging for us because we don't have, many times co-working spaces come out of existing buildings, not always, but so if a project came along and they want to build office and a co-working space is there, we need to make sure we're able to do it. But this one's also based on much better internet connectivity. Broadband was an issue with residents when we discussed this. So one of the ways we can help promote work from home and also co-working spaces is to have reliable internet, which it seems like every time we've had a Zoom meeting, somebody's crashed out. We've been pretty fortunate, but we need to, one of the goals in this plan is also to do a broadband audit, see where we're weak and see if we can get funding to help increase. Yeah, Chris.
Well, just
I'm sorry, Renee, I think I took your role, sorry.
No, please, just have the discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One of the things I've been thinking about is taking a post-COVID survey of townspeople to see if there's interest in having some type of WeWorks or some type of business that's basically office sharing arrangement within the town. I think that would be a terrific, expenditure of time to get some feedback, because obviously things have changed since, a lot of the work was done to put this master plan together. So that was my thought.
Okay, and I see Cody's on. Cody.
Cody raised his hand. Cody, can you hear us? Or better yet, can anyone hear Cody?
Cody!
Renee, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, so I guess I'm having trouble with the fact that Great Woods is owned by a company, right? And as opposed to like the example success story they give where it's a town-owned building. I mean, how much like say do we have there, right? When it's not really us that owns it, when it's it's working with the third party there.
That's a great question. And that's one where you're right. What we can do is put our best effort to them.
Because the expedited permitting doesn't really, they already have the building, right? They already have so that would only be beneficial if, for example, they wanted to sell the property.
Yeah, or redevelop it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. This is, we probably, as you're talking, we need to expand that to go beyond Great Woods. The performance measure should also be identify more suitable locations. So, but I mean, that is a weakness in it. So I'm gonna just make a note here on my hard copy and
I live next door to Great Woods and I walk that area lots and lots of times and look at the abandoned stores.
Right. But this also ties back to this whole issue of there are areas that we want to promote new growth into, and a grocery store would certainly fit into that. I don't think we're doing the community any favors by looking at anyone's site and saying that's where a grocery store should go, or other types of uses. We want to level the playing field, treat everyone evenly. So I think it's I need to tie this into some other strategy. So I'm going to make a change to that.
Hey, Cody, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can, and a very low and extended voice.
Drawl.
There you go.
He's got a drawl.
Or drunk, one or the other.
It's the terrible Verizon connection, because I have no power, and so I have no internet. So if talking is not going to work, then I'll just shut up.
Nope, you're good. It was just that first little bit. It was like it didn't know your voice and needed to draw you out there.
Oh, so the area that you're talking about, like the for the kind of walkable, Paul, you'd mentioned there's kind of like there's some spaces that are set back. Would there be any value in, like, I don't know if we can court somebody or talk, like try and find somebody that might be willing to do like a food truck park or something along those lines, where you can use that empty space and have, you know, local food trucks come and rent the space. And I mean, I've lived in communities before where you had kind of like, there's a building and the building might have a beer and wine license, but serves drinks. And then you have the, you know, picnic tables and just a bunch of food trucks around.
Yeah, and in fact, I think one of the prior strategies does that, because that's about activating sites and having innovative ways of promoting businesses in those areas. So that certainly, as we get into the implementation of these different strategies, that's a great idea. That's a terrific idea.
What would that look like? I mean, I don't know what our role is in that, or how we would network, you know, to find somebody. I don't know that there's any developers out there that are looking to do food truck parks, or if it's just like a one-off, you know, business opportunity where somebody interested in doing it. But, you know, or if there's, I know Fork and Bib does stuff on the common regularly. I don't know of any other food trucks, but if you get, you know, somebody, I know they were looking at doing a brick and mortar store restaurant, but if you get kind of a group of them together, maybe they could, you know, partner up and do something like that.
Yeah, and part of it, we already have mechanisms to permit the food trucks, and the select board can give day licenses. So there are events you could have, and those may be things that we have to work on, regulations that make them clearly allowable. Like we're needing to do that now with making open outdoor seating a more permanent option. So we've started meeting internally to try to figure that out. Which, by the way, going back to our other discussion about why infrastructure matters, a lot of those restaurants that are on septic systems won't be able to take advantage of additional capacity with outdoor seating if they trip their sewer capacity or septic capacity. So thinking about where sewer goes to serve what businesses will be a real crucial question to ask. But again, Cody, your question, I think there's programmatic things that can be done, and then there may be some regulatory things that make it allowed as of right.
To your point on the septic, Paul, I know from firsthand experience, but also in speaking to, you know, other people in the community and contractors that I'm trying to work with, that sewer tie-in is a roadblock for a lot of people. a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals. I don't know what role we would have in any type of discussion with that, but I can tell you any restaurant that is at capacity on their septic, and if they're looking at expanding and they're looking at a six-figure number to tie into sewer, that's a huge roadblock to any business.
Right, and that's going to be conversations with a number of town boards with the Water and Sewer Commission and figure out how we can make this work. Yeah, it's a huge issue. I don't have I don't have a simple answer to it, but I know, right, the connection fees are you know, they're expensive, and they are anytime you're connecting anybody from septic to sewer. But that's, again, I think the plan gives us now an opportunity to better coordinate and bring forth questions like that. And
maybe,
out what
is there a value in you know, putting forth exceptions or exemptions or, you know, credits or something to offset that? Yeah. Because I know we don't have anything to do with the Water and Sewer Board, but
well, like
those amounts are set. And
yeah, I would just say that it wouldn't be something we would identify. Those wouldn't be things we'd identify in this plan, but those would be things as we go forward with implementation to figure out, are there benefits that can be provided that creates wins for everybody? So this is left intentionally open regarding that, but this will give us the catalyst to start having conversations with all the right people to figure out the correct approach. But anything else before we move on? All right, I don't, well, we're making our way through here. So this next one is improving what you know, you're familiar with the town-gown relationship, to see if there are things that we can do between the town, the residents, and Wheaton College to improve that town-gown relationship. How can we utilize Wheaton's different assets to help promote various aspects of the community? And we already, again, do this. The select board has relationships with Wheaton. I know the town manager does, a whole host of people do. But this is seeing how we can more formalize the relationships and try to identify specific outcomes we'd like to see between us and Wheaton. And then
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a real quick, one of the things I've been thinking about is that, you know, is there something partnership that the town and Wheaton College could get into relative to entrepreneurial or business incubator type activity? And again, trying to tie it into that village core center. Those are some things that I've been thinking about. So thank you.
Yeah. Right. And as this points out there too, I mean, that's a terrific point. Are there opportunities for us to help connect their students with employers here? Are there, you look here too, about, you know, improving transit needs for students. We'd certainly want to hear from them more about biking and walking needs, or even how do we hear from them about how do we improve the village center to be more inviting to their students, particularly as they have students, international students. How do we, you know, are there appropriate avenues to take there? But yeah, there's again a whole host of things that can be done with this. And again, we already have relationships with them, and it's just improving them. think of it as relationship counseling. No, bad joke. Bad joke. I listen to too many of those podcasts. Then the next one is coordinating our local businesses to create a formal network of small businesses. So this gets to the heart of one of the issues that we're working on West Main Street as part of the local rapid recovery, which is how do we build the capacity of our businesses? And one thought we're working on in that plan process is there the ability to create a business association that, you know, presumably would help with major issues that these businesses would like, such as marketing and training, finding funds, even if when there are grants out there. So we are working on that, but and we're looking at it from the limited context of the West Main Street district, but who's to say we don't expand on this and cover other areas of town. I think, you know, just speaking from, you know, my COVID experience when, you know, a year and a half ago, everything's shutting down, and I just had so few emails and contacts for our businesses to get information out to them. That kept me up at night. And I kept thinking, well, if there was some sort of association, wouldn't that be great? And we didn't have it. Fortunately, other groups did a great job. And I found out recently, a lot of our businesses ended up getting PPP funds, extensive amount of them. So they heard it somehow, but a lot weren't from me. And, you know, we want to be seen as a tool to help businesses out. So if we're able to get a business association, that helps us communicate with businesses because we do it through the association, and it doesn't take those businesses away from their jobs. And again, this could be a conduit to the Economic Development Commission. This would be, you know, a way of, you know, if you wanted to get information, hear from businesses, or get information to businesses, business association would be a great way to do it. And then, so this one is, this goal, helping local business capitalize on Norton's recreation and nature areas such as the bike trail. So what this is seeking to do is identify those areas. Say if you're looking at the bike trail and where the bike trail crosses 123, are there targeted areas there that we might be able to open up retail right along the trail? You know, cyclists wanting to stop and grabbing a smoothie. Things like that, where other communities have been very successful, where they put retail right near a bike trail. Even restaurants locate. When I lived in Florida, there was a rail trail that went, when I lived in Tallahassee, and it took you down to the coast. There was an oyster shack right at the end of the trail. So more cyclists would make that 20-mile commute, go down, have food, and then commute back. It was a really popular place, especially on the weekends. And if you saw the bike parking, it was half the restaurant. So this is just, again, trying to take advantage of these assets. And that would also be around the reservoir. But I know Chris has a lot to say on it, or important things to say on it.
Yeah, it's ironic, Paul. The pictures of Borealis Coffee in East Providence, Riverside. And so my wife and I were riding the East Bay Bike Path this past Sunday, and they had an outdoor group playing music there. You know, the people sitting out and having coffee. You know, we stopped. We didn't go into the restaurant. We just stayed outside and listened for about 15 to 20 minutes. It was wonderful. So that ties into a great discussion that I had with a gentleman by the name of Emerson Martins, who owns the Old Station Outdoor and Landscape Supply business. I met with him basically because he is an abutter to the rail trail, and as many folks know, I've been speaking to the abutters relative to the rail trail to work through the process. He is incredibly enthusiastic about the rail trail coming in. He obviously spent a lot of time with the Conservation Commission in preserving this beautiful station house here in Norton, and runs his business out of there. But he is absolutely interested in repurposing a portion of that business for a coffee shop, an ice cream shop, or any type of service that would support the usage of the trail. In addition to that, he's definitely interested in land on the other three corners of the intersection of 123 and the rail trail. So, what are some things that the Economic Development Commission can do? Well, they certainly can advocate within the town to have the village commercial district extended to include those four corners of the intersection of 123 and the rail trail. That would be that one's a no-brainer because it's not spot zoning. It essentially is just, it looks like it would have to just be a small extension of what you've already determined to be village commercial. There is so much economic activity that these rail trails that provide communities. Obviously, the East Bay Bike Path has 5 communities that get incredible economic benefit, to the point where there's 2 bridges out at the Warren Barrington line, and there is incredible pressure on the Rhode Island Department of Transportation to fix those bridges now, because people and businesses are missing the opportunity down in Warren and Bristol of getting the business there. Even the Cape Cod Rail Trail, they do $18 million of economic activity across that 26-mile rail trail that cuts across several towns on the Cape. We don't have the opportunity for that rail trail to cross into the center of town, right? So we got to make sure that we're not going to miss this opportunity and make sure that we really push hard to get village commercial approval there. But this is just one example of the kind of things that the Economic Development Commission can engage in successfully, attract business, and really create something just greater than the sum of its parts. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, can I ask, when you showed the maps earlier, is there an overlay showing where the bike trail is going?
Yeah,
Across
there
those maps?
was.
And thank you, Chris, for that update and information.
Oh, it was in the beginning, right? Yeah. Let's try that.
I
Yeah.
couldn't picture where this location was of that.
That's right all near North Washington, so it's right if you follow the cursor.
Love me.
But it does cross some key areas, including 123, and it crosses Bay Road. And well, Bay, Bay might not be appropriate, but certainly we need to look at 123, and we'd probably want to look at some other roads, areas to see are there corners that might be appropriate for something very small scale, like even sometimes you see old houses converted into a coffee bar. I mean, we'd have to be very careful about that, but are there opportunities?
And is it, I can't tell from this, is it going through that or around that MassDOT property?
No, the MassDOT property is to the north of, whoops, hold on, sorry about that.
Renee, do you know on Route 123, there's a big hump in the road?
Yes.
That's where the rail trail passes through, because that's the sewer that goes through there.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I thought it was on here. Am I on the wrong one now?
So it's in between Town Hall and 495, essentially, like
Yes.
where that cluster of dots is. My kids
That's
love that little,
But
they call it the roller coaster.
but there are portions where it crosses over North Washington.
Yeah, I remember that over by,
Yeah.
isn't it by the 495 overpass?
It does to get to Mansfield.
Yeah.
And
Oh, so I might be thinking a little farther north than where it actually is. Because I was trying to picture what zoning would need to be
there it
redone.
is. I was like, where is this?
Yeah.
But
So it's where the number 2, Renee, it's where the number 2 is. That's basically 123, and the rail trail is the purple line with the arrowheads on either end.
Okay. And so almost right where the number 2 is the section that we would look to rezone to village commercial. Is that what you were talking about?
Exactly, exactly. And all 4 corners, right? That's critical because and then you're able to go ahead and you have essentially ready-made parcels for retail businesses with a theme, right? They like those kind of themes, and you decide what you want to make that, and you'll find businesses to fit into that footprint. And Emerson even said he'd be interested in developing all 4 corners to make sure that it would be completely consistent with not only his existing business, but also have retail establishments that would support the trail. Hey, to me, that's a no-brainer. And that way there, you've got a terrific trail, because there's really nothing until you get to Mansfield Center that supports that trail. And then if we've got something in Norton Center, frankly, that would be the attraction of the entire trail. Is the trail would, we'd be able to get people coming from Norton and Mansfield and wherever people are coming from to ride the trail to come right into Norton to bring that economic activity. Now, you could, as part of the 123 project, create some multimodal lanes that would take you to downtown Norton. Thinking more long-term, when you really get the downtown to be something, really meaningful commercially for retail. But that, again, that's a pretty decent ride. So you really have to have some major destinations to go to that are going to attract people riding bikes to go there. Bog Iron Brewery is a perfect example. People are riding bikes and then they go for beer afterwards. So that's lots of good ideas out of that. But this is what this master plan is promoting, is this type of thought, and then very clear direction for the EDC to really not spin your wheels, but have really, tangible things to be able to go to businesses with and say, hey, you ought to come here because there's a lot happening.
Yeah, and I think Chris hits on it, that this gives us targeted areas, and I hope it gives the EDC more focus of priorities. And when companies are looking, here are the places that could really be the prime locations for businesses to locate. Mm-hmm. And we have to think about it too in the context of, like what Chris is pointing out along the trail. This is some very small scale types of development, versus when you cross 495 and now you're into Blue Star and the DOT property. We're looking at large scale development that has, certainly job and tax benefits, but it's not going to be a place where cyclists or pedestrians are going to walk by or stop at. Very different things that we're trying to target in different areas. But I think this plan really helps identify the targeted areas and what each of those areas is striving to become.
The way I look at it, to augment what Paul was saying, make the good points he was making, is I always wear pants with 4 pockets, right? And so we need to be able to have businesses fit into one of those 4 pockets. We don't want a pair of pants designed with 1 pocket, right? Because one size doesn't fit all. You got to have 4 pockets. So businesses have different applications, uses, interests, target audiences, so forth. So that's the thought process here, is this could provide you with a great retail opportunity. Blue Star provides a whole different scope and scale and so forth. So
what I heard Paul say was there's no Panera going around the Mascot location. I would ride to a Panera, even from my house.
Yeah, it's, a Panera, it's possible, but if you get a Panera there, it's still probably going to be something that people ultimately drive to. And that's fine. And that's fine. It's not a criticism. It's just north of 495 is a different place than the Village Center or 123 at the bike trail. They're just different places. And we're trying to make sure we get businesses that fit and support it.
Mhm. And was there discussion in that area too? I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think that that's a great spot. Was there discussion with him as well, like, or opportunities for additional parking? So not only would people just cross through that area, but they would actually come and park there and start their journey on the trail from that location?
So there's not any parking as part of the design plan, okay, at the old station landscape. However, that doesn't mean to say that he doesn't volunteer to make spaces available to bikes. That happens many places. And my wife and I go to rail trails all over New England, and frankly, we see that happening all the time. It's a great way to attract business for sure. So you make a great point, Renee.
Thanks, Chris. Peter, did you have a question? Peter, you muted.
Today I was in Mansfield and I saw the park trail, and I saw the photo of the map that they put together and saw all the various spots that people can go. And I like that idea. And wouldn't it be nice to have something in Norton? And also I found this old newspaper article from 1999 from August 17th said, the state environmental secretary has decided that the multi-purpose trail proposed to traverse Mansfield and Norton will not have a significant effect on the environment. Clint one bird to the state funding for the project.
Great, thanks, Peter.
I can tell you that intersection of 123 and the rail trail is gonna need to have significant signaling, right? They're gonna have, it's gonna have to have lights there, right? So part of this is to really start thinking carefully about this subject, and so that you can have some input into the design process. I mean, they're only going to approve this plan to 75% design as of September, probably is when it's going to get approved. But these things, if the EDC thinks that these things make sense and that you want to be able to go ahead and to think about something greater, now's the time to raise these questions with the engineer Matt Shute from Beta. I know that there's a project right now that's in place on Route 123, and then you've got the rail trail going on, so it's all coming to a head right now. So if there's things that you think you'd like to, be able to pull all this together and kind of synthesize it all and come up with a plan, now's the time to do it. Next 30 days or so.
That's good to know. I remember hearing in one of the meetings, Paul, that that little hump in 123 was it's like a project, right? That they were going to improve that so that visibility was clear on both sides of that.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Hump?
We'd have to ask Keith.
They can't do much with it, Renee, because the sewer line is underneath it. That's why there's a hump there.
Yeah, I thought they were going to actually fill, like they weren't going to reduce the hump. I thought they were going to, I just remember being in a meeting and hearing about it, and they were going to bring the other side of the road up so you didn't, like when you kind of crest over it on either side, you lose a piece of the road. I thought that they were going to try to even that out. But Chris, I think you bring up a great point like that. People come flying down that section and you're on a bike and last minute you see, a car coming at you. It could be pretty dangerous for somebody. We certainly don't want that.
I was airborne the other day in my car, over that hump. No, just kidding.
They do have.
How fast were you going?
No, not I. I'm
Renee.
slow. Yeah, I'm the 25-mile-an-hour person. I can get my car to drive 25 miles an hour. Other people apparently can't after the meeting Monday night.
Oh, many people publicly confess they speed.
I know, the chief should have been taking names. Just sit there and wait.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry, Sandy, I couldn't hear you.
I was just saying that they have a good plan for traffic signals there at the intersection. That's part of the design.
Yeah.
Like
The rapid the beacon lights that they're going to go
Okay.
there. Yeah, so it's pretty significant that you can push, to as you're going across.
mm-hmm.
But again, if you think that it needs more, now's the time to speak up, right? If you're thinking bigger than just the rail trail, bigger than just Route 123, that you're thinking about, you want to make that intersection of the rail trail 123 a meaningful commercial retail type location, that now's the time to at least understand what's going on from the two projects that are basically really not talking to each other, right? And so you may be the group that brings those two projects together, both under the auspices of Mass DOT, to get them to start to talk, because nobody's talking between the two.
Chris, I'm not sure that that's true, because I know that
Okay.
Matt was talking to, they were working pretty closely to make sure that they, when they rip apart 123, that they, you know, that they put in what he needs for the rail trail. So
Okay,
I think he
great.
was coordinating with that, because we were kind of pushing to make sure that was happening.
Okay. I'm wiping the sweat from my forehead. I get nervous sometimes that doesn't take place. Good, that's great to hear. But there's always more that can be done. And again, it's up to the EDC what you think, what you'd like to do. But I certainly wanted to make sure, and talking with Paul and spending a lot of time on both the master plan as well as the rail trail, that this was teed up to the EDC.
And there's some conservation around that section too, isn't there? On the southern side of the road?
Yes, but the conservation has looked at, is from the rail trail perspective, that it's all set. They've already done their review and it's been approved. Now, as far as the developability of land around that intersection, I don't know the answer to that.
Paul, do you know? From
I
being
don't.
familiar with that?
There are
Okay.
wetlands across the street. There's pretty significant wetlands.
Yeah,
The only property that you have on the entire rail trail that is zoned commercial or village commercial is that old station. So, you know, the rest of the other abutters are out there, is all houses there, and all the different properties that are around there. So I'm not sure what that would look like for rezoning or, you know, redeveloping when there are residential houses there.
yeah.
Gotcha.
And we'll want to look to see, part of that might be zone village commercial, but is village commercial good enough? Does it do what we want it to do? I have concerns about it, but if it's not significant enough, we could leave it as is and maybe find some other incentives to get those properties changed to support the, you know, the bike trail. But again, it wouldn't be an extensive rezoning. I mean, we have to look at it, but it really would just be a very targeted, you know, very targeted rezoning if we were to do that. And of course, that means going through town meeting to do so.
Right. Peter, did you have a question?
Yes. Yesterday after my lunch at home plate before the planning board meeting with you, Paul, I paid a visit to the sweet stuff bake shop, and I paid a visit there, and I said hello to the owner Melanie, and they got good food, and even tried their cupcake. It's good, and it's good for me, for the honorary mayor of Norton, to support all the mom and pop businesses in town. And I did the same thing that when I visited Nico and found out to visit the Barrows Village.
Thanks, Peter.
Well, that's, as far as economic development goes, I mean, I know I've talked for an hour now, so I don't really have anything more. I mean, the plan, there are other sections of the plan that have similar strategies that overlap with it. But we've hit the big ones. So any other questions or comments?
Oh,
So
were
I
there
guess-
times? Oh, go ahead, Denise.
I was gonna say, so I guess, Paul, are there any actions that we can take now? I know you mentioned going to town meeting first, so
No.
do we need to wait for that? And then is there like an order of like preference of like what things that we could help with?
Yeah, I mean, and again, you're already doing one, at least one. You're doing more than one, but you don't have to. A lot of these, you don't have to wait until the plan gets adopted to start moving on. Again, just getting the permitting guide is a step in the right direction. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the actions and figure out the timing of these strategies, especially since a lot of them are on us. And a lot, we just need to figure out a good game plan to go there. But yeah, there are things that we could begin doing or continuing to do. But I haven't flushed that out just yet. I just haven't had the time lately to wrap my head around it. But tomorrow I actually have time set aside to try to figure out this question of mapping it out. And I'm
Thanks.
certainly willing to hear any ideas, because I am the king of stealing good ideas, but crediting people. And the parking lot was Brian's idea from Bog Iron, not mine.
Oh, we know.
Yep. I had my part in it, but it was his thought that came forward. So I'm certainly wanting to talk with people who might be able to help us just figure out a good project management approach to all these actions.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Hey, Paul, speaking of that, are you still a party of one?
I am, but we've made an offer to lucky contestant number 4. So, who
Fingers
knows?
crossed.
Yep, we've already struck out once. Maybe the 4th, this is where we'll get the hit. We've had really good applicants.
That's good to know.
Just haven't had the luck, but I'm optimistic. We interviewed a couple of really good people last week, and made an offer to one, and we're waiting.
Good.
If not, the other one was an excellent candidate too. So we hope.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Can you you sent that around to us, right?
Yes.
Okay, last week.
There
I thought you did.
And there should be an updated one, maybe the end of this week, that Serpent, when they incorporate all the planning board's changes from yesterday. There weren't that many of them, so I hope they can get it to us this week. But as soon as I'll get that out to people.
Yeah, it looks like the one we have is from June.
So I have to ask Chris, might you have time tomorrow to look at these actions and figure out or next week?
Paul, mi casa y su casa.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Paul? Perfect. Okay, so the next agenda item, I have to admit, I wrote the agenda up because we were skipping a meeting, and I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to post it. So I wrote it up, I posted it, and then I completely forgot that I had an action item to get with the water and sewer guys to have them on the call. But I did want to share just briefly, because I had asked months ago that very question about having them come on the call, and also to show us the water system, the master plan that they had. And just real quickly, I put it together in a document. I will send it out to the group afterwards, but let me share it right now because it has some comments. It also has their kind of, I think he called it a chart at one point, but it's just a table showing the different projects that are going on. And I'm just gonna, I'll let you know that I have this it's from February. So it is a few months old at this point. I'm going to skip down to what he gave as a visual, but as Paul, as you were talking, I was trying to cross-reference different areas that you brought up to kind of what their master plan is, right? Because one of the things that we talked about was how do we intertwine economic development with the improvements that are happening in the infrastructure. The other thing too, just to mention, well, there's what, I'll come back to that. But anyway, so I was looking at this to see, what areas were there that would be beneficial to some of the things that have already been outlined. And looking at this, I mean, with the exception of the work on the wells, so this is This is their 20-year improvement program. And it has some of the areas that are already in play. The wells here had some of the, these things I think are crossed off, but a lot of these have actually been completed, like Leonard Street. I don't know about White Street if that's been done. There's no timeline on here for me to reference. And Paul, if you know, please just speak up on them. But looking at this, like, I didn't see a direct connection to some of those areas that we had talked about before, or that we heard from other people, in the past couple of years, where they said, well, I looked at that, but it didn't have sewer, so it wasn't available, right? It wasn't going to be an option for them. The other thing is, I had asked them back in February to see if they could provide a map to us that showed where's the current infrastructure, and then put it against where they're planning on making improvements. I don't have that. I did search through my email earlier, and I couldn't find that. So I'll go back out to Frank and ask him for that, and then I'll get them on hopefully the next meeting, just to talk at a high level about the plan. But I wanted to share this because he did send it to me. I'm sure that there are some updates. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that he put within the email, and I'm just going to kind of scroll up, there are, as everybody knows, the regulations change frequently. So there are some risks in the timeline overall based on what the EPA and the DEP do for different things. Like you said, right now, you'll see I have up in bold here about the removal of lead water service lines. So that can certainly, if they identify more areas that need to be replaced, right, that's going to push some of the other projects off on the schedule. The interesting thing too is, and I mentioned this to him just back to an email, is the portion about the homeowners and what things that they're requiring, and how that really changes as well. Because if homeowners don't have the money to make some of these changes, or they refuse to do it, then it ends up with the municipality having to say that they're not in compliance of the new rules and regulations. So certainly those are things that can impact any sort of plan that they do. And then I left in here, he provided more context in email about PFAS. And I know that there's supposed to be a presentation at some point and more discussion on this in respect to how much is within our water and what that looks like, and what sort of costs we may incur because of that. But again, another thing that has changed from a regulation perspective and from requirements and what they have to do that can push some of these infrastructure changes later in the next couple of years. This part here, I don't know if anybody has heard of this, and I highlighted it to mention it. Sandy, I don't know if maybe you're familiar with this, just with Scott's time on the board or not, but I don't remember reading this several months ago, but when I was reading it earlier, and it just mentioned about the sewer projects on West Main Street and then the East Main Street DOT improvement project, that they have a moratorium after they're completed. I don't know if those projects do have it, but it certainly could influence future development, I guess, or future planning, if those areas essentially you have to stay away from. And I don't know completely what that would entail, but that's certainly a question that I'm hoping they could provide more clarity on.
I mean, they can't rip up the road again, right, within 5 years?
Is it just the road, or is it anything else?
I think it's primarily the road that they don't want to have you rip it up, within 5 years, and when you've just redone the whole thing. The other thing that, Renee, I think that's, the master plan, which is great. It's certainly addressing a huge issue in town with the water, but it's all water, right? It's not
right.
In the store. So I don't know. And they're obviously, they're reactive to putting out fires with the whole water situation and everything. So I'm sure that's been a major priority. I would love to at some point, when they're able to have, because I know Weston Sampson was the one who came up with this 20-year master plan and did a really thorough job with it. I would love to see something like that done for the sewer, because I don't think that exists right now. I think there are projects maybe in the on the pipeline that they have projected out, but I don't know that there's nearly this comprehensive of a plan. And I think that's I would think that's more of our concern from EDC
Yeah.
perspective. You know, I mean, the water, for the most part, they're tied into the water system here. I don't know that there's anything in the commercial area that's on a well. Those areas of town seem to be mostly in the residential. So I think for our purposes, I think the sewer plan would be more of the interest, like not so much what are they doing with the wells and what are they doing with the pipes, because I think it's great that they're doing stuff, and obviously, people are not going to want to come to Norton if there's brown water, but I think they are addressing those issues across the town. But I don't know. I think the sewer seems to have taken a back seat because of all this, right? So what's the bigger plan for prioritizing, and could we maybe even have some say in that plan as the EDC? Could we give our input as to what the priority areas of connecting to sewer when they're able to would be?
Yeah, and I think that's why, it's critical for us to actually see where do we have it now, right? First to see the existing infrastructure, to then say, okay, well, how do we see that against the master plan and against, what we've talked about for economic development and what the areas that people have been interested in.
Right.
Right.
I see that on the on our GIS map.
Oh, now you're just shooting for the stars, Sandy.
I mean, I don't know if that could be, something down the road that Serped could add to another layer onto there to show what properties currently have access to sewer. That would be certainly helpful for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. That would be my question was that listing that you showed there, was that all just replacement of water pipes, or was there sewer somehow mixed in there? But it sounds like there's no sewer listed in that plan.
Yeah, it looked like all water, and it looks more like the only thing I thought of relevance was when Paul was talking about, some of the different companies that require more water. And I don't know, from a cultivation perspective, if that would be something, that would be beneficial to them too. I mean, some of these, some of the lines are the same, so I don't know that there's really any added benefit. And I don't want to say in the project, because obviously like improvements need to be made, but in, the availability or volume of water. I think the only place that is critical is the replacement of the wells, right? Because the wells just aren't producing the way that they had hoped that they would.
Thanks.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, and just, I guess, supporting what you just said, when you look at the streets that are getting the improvements, most of those are residential areas.
Yeah.
Which is, and again, that's not to exclude other benefits you're trying to accomplish. In fact, this was brought up at planning board last night that, there might be areas that you want to extend sewer because septic systems are contaminating a body of water. We want to make sure public health and safety is maintained, but we just need to have a conversation with them about moving forward on let's face it, most of Mansfield or 140 and 123 don't have sewer. And I also, confirming what Sandy said, the water and sewer department said they don't have plans for sewer for the next 3 years or more. And I just go, okay, can we start at least on the engineering? Can we pick an area that as a community where we'd like to see sewer, then start getting the designs done? And then if we decide, let's say we decide to extend sewer on 123, continue it down, and then on our end, we would look at, okay, what should the zoning be there? What are the other things that we should try to do to help those businesses out or incentivize development? But we have to be real careful, because if it's just largely putting sewer in residential areas, there are no jobs with that other than the construction jobs. And that's what this master plan is supposed to do, is get that community conversation going. And again, I think putting it in where they did in the village center out to the housing authority was a good location. I just want to know from there, are we going up Mansfield? Are we going down Taunton? Are we heading out, continuing west toward Attleboro? Because then that helps us figure out our game plan.
Do we have any, Paul, that extend down 140?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's this, the system was there. That's what they tied into. I just don't know the extent of it. One, Taunton Ave is a little tricky too, because most of it is residentially zoned, with some exceptions,
Oh,
or
right.
commercial and industrial. Again, you know, this part of the decision would be, what's this, you know, the areas that are, what are they zoned? So, you know, if we don't have to take up a large area, I mean, we're going to run into this problem wherever we go. There's going to be, even on 123, just past the housing authority, there's a lot of single family over there. In fact, a pretty good chunk of it's single family between the housing authority and then when you get down to Home Plate. And it's most of it's zone village commercial, but you know, we would have to make a decision. Do we do something else with it? Because people live there. Is our intention for them to eventually sell? You know, it's hard to say. That's a tough decision. If we're able to get it down toward Home Plate, down toward Old Colony, where it's mostly commercial, that, you know, makes it's a, you know, you're not having to deal with the complex issue of a person who's living in a house. So
Yeah,
anyway,
agreed.
we'll have plenty of time to dive into those details when the plan's done, or even before. Again, that's something we don't have to wait to start the conversation.
Yeah. So my apologies. I totally spaced on reaching back out to them again and get them on our schedule. I got one half of it done. I'll just make sure that they're on the agenda again. We'll get the other half done. Okay, great. Thank you guys for just chatting on that. And I'll send that little snippet out that I put together from the email that I received. The next item is marijuana establishments. Sandy, I think, my God, I feel like we're going back months, but I think our conversation was just to talk about the recommendations. I believe it was from, I'm drawing a blank, Oasis of Tranquility in Queensbridge.
Yeah, I think you just wanted like a pro con list, right? And I'm sorry, I was supposed to get that for you. It was a bit of a crazy. Isn't that what you wanted? Like what are their strengths and issues?
I thought you were sending me something like that, but I don't know what you guys talked about last time. Is that what you talked about? Putting something together like that?
Yeah, we had talked about, you had said you were looking for just a list of strengths and needs from for each of the two, Queensbridge and Oasis.
Okay, I'm going to take your word on that. Was that something you talked about the last meeting?
It weren't you
Or
at
is that... No, I thought you and I talked about it offline to catch me up from that meeting.
Yeah, but I think we talked about it in the last meeting.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, and I was supposed to send something out, and then I was waiting for the PowerPoint. But you did send me the PowerPoints, and I like last week, and then I didn't around do anything with that.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're you know, that'll be good to have for, obviously we'll need it before any scheduling with the select board, but we are weeks away from that with the negotiation process. So we have some time there. Okay. But that is what we actually decided, and I just don't remember, it was going to be the concerns and the I hate calling them strengths and weaknesses, but the concerns and the supporting items, strengths, I guess strengths is the only word I'm going to use
Needs
tonight.
or strengths and concerns, yeah.
Okay.
I just looked at, I did put some strengths and weaknesses that we discussed in the meeting in the meeting minutes. So there is some of the meeting minutes already.
Okay, yeah, I think I was just gonna send something out with what I had written up already to Renee, and then ask if anybody wants to put anything to that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think we had also talked about how, weren't you waiting for some more information from? Oh no, she sent that. Did you send that to everybody? Forward the information to everybody about their odor mitigation plan? Did she send that to you or no? I think
I got everything that you told me that we needed, but I thought I was only sending it to you.
Okay.
But I can send it out to everyone.
Yeah, because I think within there was or at least we'd asked for the odor mitigation plan for,
Oasis,
yep,
right? And then
Yeah.
it was the PowerPoint for both.
yep.
Does anybody remember receiving that from me other than Sandy?
No.
Okay. I'm not sure that I remembered myself that I was going to send it to everyone. I thought it was just to put things together, but I will get that out. And then was there one other thing? Updated org charts they sent, we
Yep.
asked for.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll get that out to everybody, and then I guess Sandy, if you guys have any other pieces of input to provide to Sandy beforehand, and then she can put it together. And if the next meeting works, Sandy, I'll put it on. If we need more time, just let me know. And then we can just go through quickly to make sure that, there are no other comments once we review it holistically. And then I'll take that piece for the select board packet.
Do you have any updates, Renee, on the other, on exit 10 or on Alyssa or anybody else from?
I have, so Lucky Green Ladies presented to the select board at the last meeting. The select board will be presented with the negotiated HCA this week, and then it's on our agenda for Thursday.
To vote on Thursday? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for the HCA. So she presented, the negotiations for the HCA wasn't done by the time, at the time of our last meeting. So we actually met yesterday, finalized things. It just has to go back to them for final review, and then I think we'll be good. So that one's going. I don't have updates right now on exit 10 to share. And then
Back to the HCA. Are we reviewing it?
no,
Should we?
the HCA is negotiated between myself and Mike. I represent the select board in it, and then goes to the select board.
I guess I'm confused on that, Renee, because we reviewed the TIFs, which obviously we don't have any say on, but we do still review them. So it just seems kind of weird that we don't look at the HCA's at all.
Well, the TIFs are presented to town meeting and have to get multiple approvals throughout. The HCA just goes to the board. So the TIFs is always, and Denise, I remember you telling me this, the TIFs have always been something that have been reviewed by the EDC. I don't know what the entire background is on it, but the HCA, the only role that we had was going through the template for the HCA, and then we took that to the board for approval, but the actual negotiation does not. Okay, was there another question too that we backtracked on?
So nothing on exit 10? We don't know if they found another
No.
location? Okay.
No, I don't have anything on them yet.
Wasn't the last we heard they were looking at a couple of sites? It seems like it's been a very long time since we've gotten an update from them. Can we call them back in and find out what's going on?
I've talked to them. There's nothing that I can share right now. They're in the process. So they've been working with the chief and with some other folks, but it's not something I can share right now.
Okay. Do they at least have a site located?
They're moving forward. So I have no concerns that they're sitting on their thumbs, if that's what we're worried about. I think that was it that I had. Anything else on that?
I missed it. Did you say anything about solar, Norton?
So they have, Paul was actually telling me, I didn't realize Paul left. I believe they just received all their permits. I don't know if anybody drove past. They were cleaning out that building that was there. There's a ton of junk in that building. But everything looks good. So they're moving forward. I don't remember, last time I talked to Andre, I don't remember if he gave me a date. Alyssa indicated on the call last week that they expect to be in operation by April 2022, pending all the approvals that they have to get from the state and then going through the planning board. But I think they have less work to do than, Solar Retail Norton at this point.
So we would think Lucky Green Ladies will be up and running before solar?
I don't know. I don't remember the timeline for solar. I don't remember at all. And I don't want to speculate into their construction plan. It's been quite a while since I talked to him after he made it through the first part of the planning board. I don't know how long that's been, but it's been a while. Because I know because he already got his permits and approval from them.
Yeah, they did a timeline in their RFP. Can we ask them to update it?
We can ask them anything we want.
I think that would be helpful.
Do you want the whole timeline, or you just want to know when they expect to open?
You know, I wouldn't mind seeing the timeline just to kind of get an idea of how long things are taking in actuality as opposed to theoretically.
Okay. Well, I know that timeline will have shifted because of the bylaw change we had to have.
Right.
I will tell you, I have not received from the October meeting, the AG's office asked for additional time to review that particular bylaw. So they essentially have two changes in their queue. One is the initial, so they approve the overlay district, but they have not approved the bylaw language. And then we have on top of that, the revised bylaw language that we did at what was the next, I don't even remember what the next meeting was. May, April? Whenever our Springtown meeting was.
April, I think.
Yeah, so last I heard they asked to be for additional time to, I want to say it was this month, August 15th. But I haven't heard anything. So they came back and they approved a couple of the other articles, but that one's still pending.
Yeah, I just pulled up granted, you know, I know everything was delayed quite a bit, but Solar Norton was anticipating opening July 27th of 2021.
Yeah. So you figured they had to wait for May for us first to fix the bylaw before they can even go through the planning board. So wherever that initial one is, tack on a few months. Yeah, I'll ask him. I'll give him a jingle tomorrow and ask him to revise the timeline for us.
Okay. I'm sure they've got it on hand and they're updating it quite often.
Yeah, I would think so. Awesome. Anything else on the MJs? Is that the acronym that's used? We'll use it now. Okay. The next item was the Norton Business Database, partnership with existing businesses. And then Chris, I don't know if you've completed all of your update that you gave earlier on the rail trail, or if there's more to add. But those are the next items.
Yeah, so the rail trail piece, that was one thing I wanted to cover. The other piece I wanted to cover is the supermarket question. So, you know, most of you know I'm retired and, you know, I'm having a blast, don't get me wrong, but looking for things to keep myself busy. So, and I live right across the street from the road where the Roach brothers used to do business. So I talked to Paul and I said, hey, would you mind if I just talk to people in the industry that I've known, because I've been in the food business for 30 years, and talk to retailers that I know and see if there's any interest in this location. So, you know, the first call I made was to Grant Siegel of Gator, who's the leasing agent for the owner of the property. He was pretty specific in saying to me that the landlord was quite particular about prospective tenants, and he's very satisfied to wait until he gets exactly the deal he wants. Okay, so that's the scenario. Got it. So then I started talking to some of the folks that I know in the industry. So I talked to some people I know at Roach Brothers who were there for 20 years, and their decision was that they don't have interest in returning to this location. They didn't make any money at that location to speak of. it was their lowest producing store. So that's why they left. And even though they moved their headquarters from Wellesley down to Mansfield, so they're right around the corner here, they just don't have any appetite to come back. I talked to people that I know at Dave's Marketplace. They have 10 stores in Rhode Island, highly successful independent retailer. They don't have any appetite to extend beyond Rhode Island because they have a distribution center there, and it really is beyond their core market. So that was out. I spoke to friends of mine at Clements Market who have stores in Portsmouth, Westport, and Plymouth, Mass. So they were kind of a good candidate, but they said that 20 to 25,000 square feet is all they're looking for. And since the landlord doesn't want to subdivide the space, that takes them out of the equation. That was the same result with Trukey's. Trukey's actually did look at the space, but only wanted 20 to 25,000 square feet. And the landlord, the owner, just wasn't interested in subdividing. So that was that. I then turned to the wholesale grocers that supply independent supermarkets. So that's Bizzuto's down in Cheshire, Connecticut, and C&S Wholesale Grocers in Brattleboro, Vermont. And their sales associates from this area both indicated that this location has been on their radar for a long time. None of their customers are interested in 46,000 square feet. Kind of similar theme. Stop and Shop, Shaw's, Big Y, they're all out because they've got stores in the immediate vicinity. Market Basket is very focused on their expansion into Rhode Island. Lidl, Aldi, their footprints are very small compared to the size. So I hate to say it, but I mean, and again, this isn't dispositive, but it's certainly, I called in some favors and talked to people that, I hadn't talked to in a while just to get some feedback, but it's not great news. So it's really critical that the town have some location to go for food, right? We don't want to become a food desert. Certainly we can go across the borders of the town to get food, but I think we need to have at least some type of representative food store in town for a variety of purposes that I don't need to go into. They're pretty obvious. So one of the things I've been looking at is the produce barn on Route 140. The owner, I'm informed, is Dennis Fernandez. I guess he's a relative of the old Fernandez supermarket chain. We had about 40 or 50 stores in southeastern Massachusetts back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And, he's got a pretty good setup there. He's got a small grocery store there. He's got a liquor store, and then he's got a hardware store. So it's a pretty nice setup. So the question becomes is that, what are some of the tools that the EDC has at its disposal to be able to go ahead and to sit down with a business that's already there in place and really try to create an environment where it might start to attract more of our residents to go there for fill-in shopping. They're certainly not going to do their big shopping there, but their fill-in shopping could be a great location right along Route 140 in that corridor that we're looking to develop as a community. You've got the Route 140 corridor project that's in the background with Mass DOT. There's things in terms of a tax incentive agreement, tax incentive financing that you could go to this gentleman to help stimulate some investment on his part. There might be some things to do relative to the planning and negotiations with Mass DOT relative to curb cuts and how the design of the Route 140 would look down the road whenever the state gets around to making those changes. But that was kind of my idea. I'm sure the committee has thought about these things at length. But I do think that we really need to have a grocery store, even if it's just a smaller store, more like a general store kind of concept there in the community. There is the option of CVS. CVS does have what they call their urban format stores. So I'm aware that certain communities have gone to CVS and encouraged them to expand their grocery offerings. So that is certainly an option that exists there. And CVS would simply go in there, reset the store, and provide fresh foods and a much bigger variety of food products that they provide right now in a more traditional setting that they have on West Main Street in Norton. You know, the Gator, the Great Woods Marketplace property, I mean, you could try to go ahead and negotiate with the landlord, but I just don't see any grocery store having an appetite to come in there in that location, given the fact that Roche was in there for 20 years. So it's a tough situation. Grant Siegel from Gator did indicate to me that they had been talking to Price Chopper, but Price Chopper just bought 104 Tops stores in upstate New York. They were a chain that was in and out of bankruptcy for years. They've got their hands full, so they're not going to open up a store there. So long and short of it is, I just wanted to do whatever I could for the town. I've got no horse in the race here. I just like to see us be able to have a place that you could go to be able to get some food if you need it right here in the community. That's what I had.
Thanks, Chris. It is. I know a lot of folks have looked into the, you know, supermarkets and things going there, and I'm going to bring on the chatter on the chat, the chatter on the chat in respect to Trader Joe's, because this has come up, I would say, more than a handful of times in respect to Trader Joe's going there, and you know, kind of assessment into that was that the footprint was too small if they wouldn't subdivide, and then also just the geographic location of Foxborough, which I don't know anywhere where Trader Joe's is close to another Trader Joe's, but if I remember correctly, I think Tool had reached out to them, and I think they talked to them, right, and they just flat out said they had no interest in coming to Norton. I think, you know, Chris, to your point, and I think, Laura, you found this out previously too, right? There's, from a revenue perspective, it's, I don't know if it's where the property is or if it's Norton in general for that type of industry, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be enough draw.
No, the demographics and the market analysis, from what we've been told, just does not support a major grocery chain. And Gator, you know, when we met with Gator, they said absolutely they would be willing to subdivide for the right tenant, but they have told us other things as well that have turned out not to be true.
Right. And what is was there any indication what that right tenant was, Laura, from your conversation, or Chris, yours, and then being specific?
No, it involved us throwing a lot of money at them.
Oh, right.
Yes.
So that's not a tenant, that's a
incentivization. Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay.
If we pay for it, they'll do it.
There's a couple of apartment complexes that are being built in that area. Maybe that will change the demographics enough to entice somebody. I don't know. You
mean the 40B, Denise,
yeah.
Or is there another project?
I thought there was at least one, maybe two, like one behind the McDonald's, I thought, right?
Yeah, there are two 40Bs, one behind the McDonald's and then one next to Alberto's.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and the one behind McDonald's, I mean, I remember this one. It's a pretty impressive project, you know, and we had asked because one of their supporting points for that location was that there's a grocery store right there, right? And people could walk to it. And so when they came last in front of the select board, we knew that Roach Brothers was leaving, and that was actually one of the questions was, does that change, you know, their thoughts? And it did not. So, I mean, it would be nice, right, if that unit could bring a draw back in and do something. I don't know, you know, maybe it goes back to the question of a feasibility study, like what could that area be used for? You know, I mean, on Facebook, like there's a bunch of things thrown out, from the trampoline park to, did I read an indoor go-kart area, or am I just imagining that? And if I am imagining it, let's put it out there on Facebook.
So Renee, I guess what I said earlier to Paul is I don't understand doing a feasibility study from our perspective as a town when frankly, we've run into so many roadblocks with Gator, right? That they
Yeah.
haven't been willing to, they haven't been, I should say, super receptive to our suggestions. So I don't know what more we can do as a town until they are receptive and reaching out and asking for that kind of help.
Yeah, I guess my concern is, you know, do we just continue down to it becoming an eyesore, and then you only have a couple, you know, right now it's the gym, the dance studio, the game, and Fiestas. And I know Laura thinks everybody goes there for the gym, and I think everybody goes there for Fiestas. It was the parking lot. We went last week for Taco Tuesday, and man, that parking lot was jammed. I think like I had to park like 4 or 5 rows back, so that is great. And they definitely weren't in Fiesta, so good news there. But you know, I hate to just let it sit, and then, you know, it becomes an eyesore for people who are driving by, for people who live by it. Like, it changes the neighborhood, right? And I know they haven't been great corporate partners by any means, but does that mean that we give up, or can we try to do something to entice them to bring other businesses in, you know? And I know, you know, we can have the conversation about, is it really the EDC's role to do that? But it's such a big area, and I think such a big impact in our community that I'd hate to not do anything and just let them kind of, you know, turn a blind eye. I don't know what the solution is, but.
And Renee, we also, you have the Chinese place and the Dunkin's too, and that Great Woods Marketplace opened in 1998 at the side of the old Norton Flea Market, and I live next door to that area, and I frequent that a lot of times. And I'm just wondering what could go in there. And CVS used to be in that plaza until they moved to downtown Norton back in 2000. And also, I remember a video store, a Radio Shack, Cost Plus, a bedding store, a sporting goods store, Norton Express, a party store being there. Wow.
Thank you, Peter. I think a lot of those have gone under, unfortunately. Oh, I forgot about the Best Sandwich Shop is in there too.
Yep. There's a hobby shop in there too, a Dungeons and Dragons kind of place.
Yep. And also there used to be a yogurt store, TCBBY Yogurt, and then the very frozen yogurt shop, and also Potbelly Gyms and Fashion Bug.
That's old. We're going in the Wayback Machine now.
The Peter Channel Time Machine.
Exactly.
I have to say, I mean, I've punched myself in the face several times about not doing all of our shopping at Roach Brothers. Not that it would have changed anything, but you know, it's just like the phrase that I used to hear was, Norton is the place where businesses go to die. Terrible, right? When the first time I lived here, but when I came back, it was a different game in the town. You know, we've been back here 7 years, living at Jurassic Park, right across the street from Roach Brothers, and you know, it's really a great town. I can't believe the changes that have taken place, you know, in the last 10, 15 years. We left in, what was it, 1996, but you know, just we've got to have some kind of food store. This is, you know, separate from the Great Woods Marketplace. We've got to have a food store. So can we, as part of the master plan, really sit down and leverage the people that we have in town right now doing business, selling food? So that's number one. Number two is I would agree with Renee in the sense that, I mean, they're already there. I mean, the owner is there at Great Woods Marketplace right now. I mean, you almost have to continue to deal with it, right? And you know, what is the right combination? What is the right situation? I don't know, but I agree. I mean, I come out of Smith Street. I look across there every single day, multiple times a day, and it drives me crazy to think of a town of 20,000 can't keep a supermarket and, you know, collateral businesses in business for extended periods of time. It's just really disappointing. And I think this town is going so much further than what I ever thought it would, even in the last 7 years. I mean, the vote for a new town hall, vote for a new senior center. I mean, geez, you can't believe how excited I am about riding my bike over to the senior center as soon as I can safely ride on 140 Mass DOT. But I mean, there's just so much great energy going on in the town that there's got to be a solution across the street at Great Woods Marketplace. And I encourage the EDC, to look into it. And I will offer up, I will be happy to do anything you want me to do. I got time on my hands. I'm here to help. I don't have any agenda other than just trying to see the town continue on this great improvement trend. And, if you need me to do cold calling, prospecting, whatever the heck you need me to do, wind me up, point me in a direction, and I'm happy to do whatever I can to help all of you, because I appreciate the commitment that you all make to be on the committee and, and spend the time and do the things that you've done to help this community.
Can we ask
Sorry.
here flat out whether, what it is they're looking for? I mean, we've heard the same kind of thing a couple times, right? That if they get the right business. So I guess, what is the right business? Because we seem to be spinning our wheels we found them a business to go into that plaza, right? Not into the Roach Brothers itself, but to go into the plaza, and they didn't want that. So I guess rather than, if we are gonna help them and continue to kind of think about that, I would like to know what their ideal business is and what it exactly is they're looking for.
Right. And Chris, just to give you some context too, and I'll openly admit that I'm a bit bitter about this, right? They agreed, and now it's happened twice to us, right? We've had folks either reach out to us or who agreed to have marijuana establishments in their areas. And we did everything that we could to support that and kind of, suggested it, brought people in, and then all of a sudden, right, they changed their tune. And whether it be because they wanted to or because there were extenuating circumstances, to me is irrelevant. Like, it was still, the effort was there, and then folks were in a position where money was spent and then lost because then they had to move. So I think the more information and specificity that we can get from them, the better, because I'd hate for us to be an advocate for them and then bring somebody in and all of a sudden they find out that the door is not open.
Right.
Hey, Chris, I had another idea, and I'm not sure. We had brought it up back a few meetings ago, and Michael Toole said he was going to look into them, and I'm not sure he ever did, but one of the ideas was Lambert's. If you're familiar with
Lambert's. Oh, I love Lambert's.
Okay. I suspect it's going to be something very similar to Clements and Trucci's. The footprint's probably going to be too big for their needs, but it can't hurt to ask if you've got the time.
Happy to. Absolutely happy to. Yeah.
There would one of the other units in there, like, I know we keep focusing on the Roach Brothers one, but would one of the other units be more?
It's too subdivided. They're really small.
But I think I agree, Laura. But Renee, I think you're all over this thing. It's like, we got to think out of the box here, right? Because there's no simple solution, right? So the idea of a Lambert's, fabulous, right? But maybe 2 of those units, right? I mean, there's a lot he can do with square footage. Maybe that might be the answer. I mean, I don't care who it is, but Jesus, I'd just like to walk across the street and go and get some nice fresh produce and bring it home. Do I have to keep driving to Easton to Langwater Farms or to Cook's Farm in Franklin? I mean, why can't I get it here in Norton? I can't. And so that's an idea about having, and what about, do we have local farms in the town here that are producing things? Can we pull something together with a Lambert's and a local farm? And, those are the kind of things that, ideas, and it may not fill 46,000 square feet, but it might fill 5, 10, like 10,000 square feet was what the original Roach Brothers store was in back in the day when they first opened, and they sold milk there. That's all they sold. Then produce, then they kept adding on. So I mean, there's a lot of different things we can do here that I think the community that will be in a scale that could set itself up for success within this community.
I appreciate your optimism, Chris.
Thank
I
you.
really do. Thank you.
Thank you. It drives my wife insane.
I'm saying I'm being honest though. I'm being sincere. Like, it's nice to think that, you know, somebody thinks that there's more that we can do than just, you know, complain.
Another suggestion, and I feel like we talked about this, and I can't remember what we said about them. That the NASF, the produce that's down in their home base in Fall River, but they started doing deliveries to this area and really kind of, you know, took off during COVID, where they would
What's the
deliver
name?
fresh fruit. NASF.
I don't know that name.
So they had,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they, you know, like I said, started with, I think the woman who or the family who owns it, one of the women from that family lives in Mansfield. So she started just kind of delivering, you know, to people in Mansfield, bringing things from, I believe it's Fall River. Is that what it says, Laura? Fall River?
Yeah. Yep.
So she would bring things from the warehouse in Fall River and deliver them. And then she just kept expanding. She at one point had you'd go do a pickup at Great Woods, right by there. You could drive through and pick up produce and order online. And then I think she actually is now doing, you know, delivery. It's specific delivery. So I don't know if maybe she'd be looking to expand the family and just looking for, like you said, sort of more of a warehouse as a home base to do their deliveries from. I don't know if that would appeal to them at all, or what they wanted to, because they certainly have the customers in this area. They've really, you know, gotten a lot more popular in Norton and Mansfield area.
That's a great idea. I mean, home delivery is really exploding, and that you've got a lot of, you know, startup organizations, or even if they're not startup, they're startup within that type of home delivery type business, where you get distributors, produce distributors, for instance, moving into an area. I'll even talk to Sid Wayner as well down in New Bedford, because they've got specialty produce, things like that. Lambert's, NASIF's, NASSIF''S.
No, 2 F's. At the end. NISIFF.
Okay, got it.
2 F's.
IFF. Okay, great. I'll look them up. So if, you know, with the committee's approval, I'd be happy to go ahead and do some prospecting and see if we can pique some interest, and, you know, just tee them up. If you have any other ideas, throw them my way. I'll chase them down and I'll get back to you. And happy to do it, because there's got to be a solution here somehow, right? And then you build momentum, right? You get a new tenant, and then that attracts another tenant, and there's just this upward spiral of success. Then all of a sudden the place is full, and, you know, the owner is happy or reasonably happy, and we move forward.
You know, Chris, what might help, as you said, as you kind of offered yourself out there,
Yes,
there was a business, Bumblebee, Jumping Beans, something like that had signed pre-COVID. Jumping Beans that had signed pre-COVID into that space. It was a children's, I think, kind of like play, maybe.
Yep, there's the play area.
Daycare. Now, this might be the wrong time to ask, right? If she's still interested in coming to Norton. I know she has another location, and I say, right, you know, obviously the numbers are going back up temporarily, so that could change things, but maybe you can reach out to her and just get feelers on if she has any plans in the near future to come into town. Does anybody remember? Was her name Melanie? Does anybody, or can anybody search? I'm awful at searching Facebook. I end up in places I shouldn't be. You think anybody can search that and find it? I do remember a picture posted where she actually signed the lease. I thought maybe it was on Norton Neighbors. But that might be worth, you know.
I'd be happy to. You know, again, the conversation I had with Grant Siegel was he was being very choice with his words, was going to give me a message and then leave it up to me to interpret it, right? So I could have asked him more questions and he would have just repeated the same thing he just told me in the previous sentence. That's the sense that I got. So ultimately, it's one of those things where what's the right tenant? Well, we'll find out, kind of thing. But what other choice do you have, right? That's the only way, and it's in the town's best interest for that place not to look like something, I see in other communities. It then it starts to become a public safety issue, worse than speed of drivers in the town.
Hey, Chris, I got another potential one for you to look up.
Sure.
And I have no idea whether it's a good fit or not, but I've been ordering from them. Misfits Market.
Okay.
They're Pennsylvania based.
Yep.
And it looks like they are set up in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, and Maine, but it's covering almost the entire Northeast footprint. So they deliver here in Massachusetts.
Okay.
But I don't know if they've got it's similar to Imperfect Produce, similar type of concept. They will take excess produce from local farms and find ways to sell it. And they do, so they do fruits and vegetables. They do some pantry items, a lot of specialty type things, lots of plant-based things and non-dairy type alternatives. Things that definitely need some refrigeration and decent amount of space. But it could be a distribution center for them.
That's a great idea. I'll ignore the non-dairy alternatives because I was in the dairy industry for 23 years. So I'll forget you said that. No, just kidding. But no, that's a great idea. I mean, this is the kind of model that might, create some traction here, because it's more, again, this goes back to some of the discussions I've had with Paul about Norton becoming a supply chain center economically, right? We are the supply chain town. So we're, warehousing, distribution, logistics, those kind of things. And as it relates to food, I think that's the perfect thing, because you're not just delivering to Norton, we're just the location, and then obviously have a concentric circle around Norton where you deliver. So
yeah, we have a decent access of farms. You've got Moose Hill, you've got Wardsbury, you've got Flint. You've got to assume that there is food going to waste that they can't sell or can't get to market quick enough.
Yep. Okay.
So Chris, you mentioned you've been around dairy for quite a bit, and I was thinking as you guys were talking, I purchase regularly from Monroe Dairy on a weekly basis, right? It seems to me like that would be something that they could easily set up like a small store with their stuff, but I'd have to imagine that they've thought about that and have zero interest in doing that for whatever reason, right? Because certainly they've got a broad variety of fruits and vegetables, ice creams, milks, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a home delivery business, and they're doing okay, but it's a challenge, right? And for them to get involved in the retail side of the business wouldn't necessarily be their core competency,
right?
So that might be a stretch for them. But hey, I'll pick up the phone. I know folks down there. I'd be happy to pick up the phone. And those are the new owners who bought it from the family. So,
or maybe if we could pair them with someone who does have retail interest, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
yeah.
And the local farms. I mean, I don't really know a lot about any of the local farms, but do any of are the farms growing, tomatoes, corn, all the typical type of produce that you grow locally here, or are the farms more doing other things than growing produce in Norton?
I think, well, not so much in Norton, but I think some of the ones that Laura was talking about are, you know, have yeah, your general vegetable, fruit, produce kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, this is a good list. It's a good list. I've got some stuff to do.
I think Paul might have a list for you too, if you want to sit in that open office space for a little
My days of working are over, Renee. I've had enough. Yeah.
No, you don't have to call it work.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak with the committee, and thank you for all that you're doing. And please have a great evening and stay cool tomorrow.
Is it going to be warm?
Very.
Same as today. Yeah.
Oh, I've been in the basement, so.
Got a heat wave.
Yeah, finally, right?
Exactly.
I guess. Hey, Laura, we had, did you want to talk about the database?
Sure.
I actually
I had to give myself a tutorial before we started. Joe built a lot of the functionality of it for me. So I was like, I got to remember how this works. All right, give me a second. Okay, hang on, I'm going to move you guys over.
Oh, and by the way, guys, Paul sent me a text. He lost power.
Oh.
And oddly
enough,
enough,
blow us off.
Right. No, he didn't. And I didn't see it. I think he sent the text right as I made a comment about, oh, I didn't notice he dropped. And then oddly enough, with Cody saying he lost power, and they were both out of power at the same time earlier. So I think they're somehow connected to the same grid through different states.
That sucks. All right. Can you guys see?
Sounds like my dog ate my paper.
That one still work? I can see your screen, yes.
Okay. For some reason, and I don't know why, I can't move you guys. I want you up top. All right, I'm just going to throw you over here. Actually, all right, I can't see any of you, so yell if.
There's, Laura, if you see the view button, I don't know if, like, you got to click the standard one to put everybody at the top. Mine went side by side and people were all
I had
on the
it,
side.
it's gone. Like, my functionality's gone. I think it's because I'm sharing the screen. I don't.
Is your bar somewhere else? Did it go somewhere else?
No, the bar is there,
Okay.
but the button where I used to be able to change the view is gone. And I don't know why.
Okay.
So I'm just hiding you all.
Renee, what are you seeing as side by side?
The view where you could put everybody's picture side by side, like when somebody shares a screen, you can put them side by side versus on the top.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. So I, with some help from Joe, tried to make this as easy as possible. So we've already talked about the spreadsheet in general and where some of this data came from. And I think we wanted to fill in what type of business they are, and then some contact information as much as we are able to ascertain. So you can see here, there's two columns, category and subcategory. And when you actually pull it, it brings a drop-down box and it's got a bunch of different categories or heading categories. And then for each one that you choose, so I'm just going to use this one as an example. For health and medicine, you can pull over the next drop-down box and actually pull up specifically what type of healthcare or medicine facility it is. The second tab down here at the bottom shows where the categories are listed. So by column, their main category. And then under each is a subcategory. And I tried to be as comprehensive as I could. I know I am missing things. Just even this morning, I filled in another one. But to add a category or a subcategory, it's really easy. You're just going to click on that button. It opens a new line, and that's it. And then on the primary page, that subcategory will now be available to choose under that main category. If you have a situation where you need to remove them because the way this is set up, You actually have to press this button to reset them, and it resets both of them simultaneously because they're triggered off of one another. Unfortunately, just deleting one doesn't delete the other, so you could have a mismatch of category and subcategory. So this will actually clear both of them if you do press that button. So I started going through and I figured out the easiest way to fill in the category and the subcategory is, most of these are from the Secretary of State's reports, with a few exceptions. Easiest way of going about it is, so hang on 1 second, I'm going to delete that because that is not health or medicine, is to take the business name and actually do a lookup on the Secretary of States. Give me 1 second. Okay. Which screen are you seeing right now? Are you still seeing the spreadsheet, or are you on the Secretary of State's page?
Spreadsheet.
Okay. Hang on, then I gotta stop sharing. And I gotta restart sharing. Okay. So on the this is just the Secretary of State's page. From the main page, you're going to go to corporates or corporations, and you can search the database, and you can put as little or as much information in there. So I could pretty much just put in 12 Newtown, hit search corporations, and it brings up what it finds for a match. From there, the summary is not going to tell you what the type of business it is. However, if you scroll down to view filings, every single corporation has to have some sort of certificate of organization. And within that, it tells you exactly what type of business it is. So in this case, it is like real estate management. But I just noticed something very interesting. And okay, so here's another thing you're probably going to want to look at. This company has been dissolved as of June 30th. So it was so recent ago, they don't even have a PDF up here. But a court ordered that company dissolved. So in that instance, as opposed to going in and filling in for these types of ones, so the one above it is similar. Real estate investing holding company. If you do find that it has been dissolved, I've been putting in X in column C.
You can't see your spreadsheet, Laura, just so you know.
Sorry, hang on. Stop sharing, start sharing. There we go. Okay, so One Legion LLC is a real estate holding company, and it's under miscellaneous. And so similar situation is we don't actually have property management, but I can put that in there. Column C is where I've been marking if the business is specifically closed. But I'd like to have a conversation as to whether or not we want to keep, if this is the type of bit, because there's a lot of them, we're going to find a lot of real estate holding companies, property management that are associated with condos, trusts, that sort of thing. They're not really pertinent to what we need. So we should probably have a discussion as to whether we want to keep them or maintain them on the spreadsheet or just delete them when they're found. It'll certainly make things a little bit easier maintaining it, because right now this spreadsheet is, I think, 1,100 different organizations.
And Laura, from this, can you tell where they actually, like, where there's a business located, where potentially there might be commercial property available?
I'm not following you. Repeat that.
Is there an address associated with the business name? So say
Yeah,
this one,
right.
this one.
Yeah, it's Fernandes Circle.
Do we know if that's like a residence or if that's?
You know, you could do a Google search. So the location of the principal office, according to the Secretary of State's website, is 4 Fernandez Circle, and it is to own and manage real estate. It's probably a trust that was just set up for the purposes of buying other real estate. So it's not as if it is a real estate agent for Fernandez.
I'm just wondering if there's like any correlation to potential locations that might be open for others to go into.
4 Fernandez Circle is a residential 4,800 square foot home.
Okay,
So that's according to Google.
maybe it'll come on the market.
Maybe. I have a feeling this is just a sole, a person who is investing in real estate and had to register a company for the purposes of not holding it in her or his own
Sure.
name. So again, is this the type of business that we want to maintain on here? I don't see us having any need, they may not even be buying. 12 Newtown Road is probably the name of the property that they own. It's probably not in Norton. It may not even be in this state. So typically when people want to set up an LLC for the purposes of buying a company, they just use the address of the property and where it's located. So I didn't see a need to keep it. It's not like we're ever going to be doing surveys, looking for their input. They're not public facing. But I did not want to make that determination and just start deleting them off the list.
I mean, I think it's, if it's no longer relevant to us, I think deleting it off the list is appropriate unless we would expect that we would take another report from the secretary from the same source and then we feed it in and don't know what it is. That would be my only concern. Like, can it just be hidden? Once you put the X in, can it be hidden so you don't see it?
Sure. Yeah, we could hide that specific category. In this case, since it's dissolved, yeah, I don't see any point in keeping it. But in the one above it, where it's One Legion LLC, that's still active. So, so we need to do that for quite a bit. And like I said, there's 1,100 of them. There was another interesting one down here, A&E of Norton Inc. When I looked it up and looked at its articles of incorporation, I found out it was a liquor store. I said, well, that's interesting. I don't know of any A&E of Norton liquor store. So I looked up the address, and the address is actually Barrowsville Station. Interestingly, again, this one also had articles of dissolution. So the A&E of Norton is no longer up and running. So it made me question. I wonder if this did not say it had been transferred to somebody. So all I did was just did a quick search of the street address and found out, yep, we do have on our list, it looks like 2 different companies at the same address, Bristol Beverage, Bristol Country Store, which is, if I had to guess based upon the date, the current owner of that particular property. So in this instance, again, I would probably delete A&E of Norton. But to Renee's point, I could see the benefit of potentially keeping it on there too, just so we're not having to look at it every time we go to update this.
Maybe ask Joe. Maybe Joe can help with that part.
With
Did he help you bring the data in? Like with the part of
No, I
if it's
had the data. See, this is where going forward, so this is a good static list. However, going forward, we need some sort of process or procedure that when, a new company comes to town, they've got to more than likely register with the town and they should be added to this list manually. is my thought, but who is responsible for maintaining this list and updating this list on, a periodic basis? It's great that we created it, but it's static. It's only as good as, the data that we've got. And we need to have some better way of making sure it's updated. And my thought was that would be through town hall, and when companies had to register.
Yeah,
We had talked about that before, and so we couldn't really require them. We could ask them to, but unless, and I think this was kind of Denise's point, that unless there's an incentive for them to do that, right? Like, what are we going to provide for them? And I think the idea is, if we could actually do something for these companies, right? Do something with this list, then that would incentivize businesses to reach out to us in order to register with the town or whatever it happens to be. But and if they don't, not seeing a benefit, I'm not sure why they would do that.
yeah, I may have misunderstood, Laura. I thought you were talking about somebody in town hall that would update this.
My thought, would be somebody within town hall, and whether that's planning, Paul had been talking about the fact that, we're not keeping an accurate list of the businesses, and he didn't know, have any way of reaching out to some of them during, the beginning of the pandemic. So, the thought was, if we built it based from a certain point in time, it could be maintained and updated by, again, whether it be planning, whether it be the town clerk. I don't know who the correct person is. I'm not to say.
Maybe we can ask Paul and he can hear.
Yeah, I was kind of
bring it
hoping
to Mike.
I was hoping he would stay on. But where we are going to need some help is updating all of the categories and subcategories. Hang on, I'm going to share one more time because I missed something. On the registration with the Secretary of State, on the initial filing, it lists the first and last name and the title of the person running the business. So that could be extracted. So down here, 8515 Health. So this was extracted from the Secretary of State's website. The additional information, meaning website, email, and phone number, is going to have to be extracted from a Google search. But I think once we have isolated, it doesn't necessarily need to be done. So for example, for these real estate holding companies, we don't need to know who owns them. We don't need a website. We don't need a phone number. We're probably never going to be able to find it anyways. That's kind of the reason they've set that up. So, it's only the ones that we may at some point want to connect with or reach out to or have some way of getting in touch with, that we would want to fill in the contact information over here in that section.
And Laura, did you already put all the information that Michael had?
I did. So Michael's information is the stuff that's in yellow. So where he had some information, I added it or combined it. But there was some, he had some information in here, but there wasn't a lot. But where we did get it from him, I input it in here, and his stuff is in yellow. So as a recap, the blue is companies that came directly from the town report. So for example, this Marjo, I cannot find that on the Secretary of State's report. Don't know what they do. Google search doesn't really say anything.
That's the they do clothing.
I was going to say, is it like a LuLaRoe type?
It's it's they do custom
out of their house. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, some of them were just simply, if they're not registered with the Secretary of State, we're never going to find them. We could do a Google search on the name, see if whatever pops up. And
Laura, this is
Yeah.
Chris.
Hi.
The fire department could potentially have some database that could provide some additional information. They need to visit business sites, identify what chemicals and combustibles, et cetera, are located there. So it's possible they could have some information as well. Just a thought.
Yeah, I thought we brought that up at the last meeting and
I-
someone was gonna reach out to them.
It sounds familiar, but I don't remember who.
Mm.
It is ringing a bell. So, unfortunately, the next step involves us literally going through 1,100 items and calling out, what's not relevant and filling in what is relevant, so that we have a usable product. And I can't help but notice this is like the least highly attended EDC meeting that we've had in quite a while. And I don't want to just say everybody gets, 200 numbers or 200 lines. I would like to be able to get people's okay before I assign them a task like this. It's also helpful. They're going to need, the people who aren't here are going to need to know how to update the category and the subcategory as well and reset it.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure like the folks that aren't here, right? Like Mike Bassini, Michael Toole, and Sharon. Maybe Cody dropped off too, right?
He
I think
just
they've-
lost power. He just sent me a text. His signal gave out. He still
So-
doesn't have power.
I think they've at least seen this, and I think everyone's expecting or knows they'll be getting a cluster of businesses to kind of look into and update.
I didn't
So
want to
I wouldn't-
assume. I was kind of, I was hoping everybody would volunteer to take a chunk, but I didn't want to assume.
Yeah.
Or do I just, what did Dave Heaney used to say? Voluntold?
But yeah.
Voluntel? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could send it out too. Like here's a cluster of businesses to look at. If you don't have time to get to it or don't have the availability to do it, please let me know. We'll assign someone else or something. Like leave it open so that way if they can't do it, they can at least push back and say, I don't have time or whatever.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Hey, Laura, can I ask too on there? Is there a place, like I liked how you put in Burrowsville in there? Like, can we add a column where we can put the actual like company name so that if we're scrolling through the list, we can just see it?
Yeah, in most cases, we may find more and more of that. It'll have to be to the right of the reset button. Anything you add, we can do it. It's it's getting a little unwieldy as is, but as it is. So again, the blue information. So where we had information from the town, I left that in here. In some cases, we had kind of discrepancies between what the town address said and the Secretary of State's report said. So we kept that. So we had kind of a full record of data. But and I, wasn't expecting to see a lot of this, but I think there might be more than I am expecting. Where it's actually incorporated under a completely different name.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you from doing the approvals that we have to do, the license approvals, there are so many on there. I don't recognize what they are.
Doing business as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I thought, like, I like that. I'm like, oh, well, I know what that is, right? And then I know they just changed owners. So it just might be something that's helpful if, if we're going through the list and we're able to figure that out, just to put it in there.
Okay.
For context. That's a huge list.
It is. Yeah. And at the end of the day, in terms of the companies that we actually may want to reach out to, it's probably only about 25 or 30%.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a start.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think that's great.
That's a lot of work. Thank you, Laura and Joe.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Joe.
Joe did a little bit more work than that. Yeah. I kept saying, hey, can we do that? And he just give me this look, and then you do it. So, thank you, Joe.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you're still awake. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm fading a little bit, but I can see my eyes are getting darker.
Me too.
I saw mine right when I logged in. I'm like, oh, this looks awful. Hey, just real quick though, did you guys have any other questions before we kind of wrap it up? Okay, so Laura, the hope then is at the next meeting where we have more people that we throw it out there and see how we can divvy it up.
Do we want to do that, or do you want me to just delegate? Denise
Let's
seemed
say-
to be like, just send it.
Just send it, get it out.
Denise is a powerhouse. If you just send it and don't actually tell me I have this specifically to do. I mean, even sometimes when you tell me I have this specifically to do, it just doesn't get done. I'm
That's
trying
right.
my best.
You can say I don't have time.
I'm trying to find time. Let's put it that
Well,
way.
So Laura, what if you just broke it into chunks and then said who wants what? And then have people volunteer to take different chunks. And if all of them don't get taken, then when the first round goes through,
We'll have to make them larger.
well, no, I mean, we could take up a second chunk, right? Like if I finish mine
Oh, I see what you're saying.
early, then I can start into a second one. So just
Do
chunk.
I include alternates?
Yeah, why not? I think you
Okay.
should include
Fair,
Chris.
fair game.
Yeah, Chris
I
is
was
fair
kind-
game at this point too.
I would
made a
no,
comment.
he's left. I was kind of hoping he'd be like, oh yeah, I could take some, but I think we gave him enough to do.
We'll hit him up the next meeting. How about that?
Why isn't he on here?
He just sent a note. I didn't see it, but he said that.
No, I mean,
Um,
why isn't he on the EDC?
Oh, well, right now we don't have any positions, but I did. I'm pretty sure I sent him an email on that a little
Okay.
while ago.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly who he was. The last time we never got to my category and he wanted to speak, and I'm like, I know he's associated somehow with the rail trail, but I didn't know what it had to do with the businesses. So
He's I think just recently jumping into different committees. Yeah, I mean, he's not really affiliated with the rail trail committee, but he has been, yeah.
Okay.
He has so much knowledge of the community
Mhm.
and
He's a
you
pinch
know,
hitter or a utility player.
I think he's gonna be a clutch hitter. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Glad to have him.
Me too.
We like people willing to work.
I know. I wish you liked to do meeting minutes.
I'm working on it, Renee.
No. I know you are. It is my least. It is. It's one of those things. I literally I'll be like, okay, this weekend, you know what? I'm gonna have this chunk of time, and I'm gonna take an hour and just sit down and I have my notes, so I can just sit down and bang it out. And then life happens, and I don't do it. And this week, I've been on calls at 6:30 in the morning, at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, I just don't have the energy.
I hear you.
My
So
brain is crap if I do not do it literally right after the meeting. I will look at my notes and go, I don't know what I meant.
really,
There are times I will go back and look at my notes, and sometimes they're good. As it gets later in the night, they get a little.
yeah.
There's a lot more shorthand. Then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll know what that means come morning. And
No,
No.
I hear you.
so I
That's why
just
we
do them.
record them for right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so hey, real quick, the next item, the meeting logistics, right? So we kind of got thrown, I think, back into virtual for a couple reasons: the fear of hybrid, the time it's going to take to get set up every meeting for that. But I'm wondering, given that summer's kind of coming to an end, and hopefully we will have some nice weather, does anyone have any appetite to maybe do our next, have an outdoor meeting and just have a little lighter agenda and have more, I thought this was really good. We had more of kind of just discussion, right, on things that we could see coming into town, stuff like that. Not like a priority session or anything. But would you guys like to do something like that?
Sure. Everybody bring something to eat, maybe.
So my only question with outdoor, right, is it's getting darker earlier. We don't start till 7. So
Yeah.
we have to find a lit outdoor area, right?
Or just start earlier.
is that little gazebo down in, well, the common would probably be too loud, but what about the library one? Is that lit up? Does anybody know at night?
I don't think so, not at night.
I don't think
Well,
so.
there might be lights along the path, but not in the gazebo, I don't think. I don't think it's got power.
Hmm.
It's gotta be accessible for people too, right? To who?
Norton Media.
Well, no, in general, I
No.
think it's accessible for
For people to attend.
to attend, so
Oh,
ADA and all that kind of stuff has to. So I don't know.
I have to ask that part on the ADA, because we were just talking to Lauren about this last night in respect to a different meeting. But I haven't been to the gazebo. Trace has with the kids. Does it have steps?
Yeah.
Is it is it elevated?
wait, which one? So the one in the center has steps.
The library one.
I don't think it does.
And I think
I
it's
think
all,
there's a,
yeah.
I think it's a path that just goes straight into it, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I'll try to.
I'm not gonna, oh. Can you hear me? Okay, I just lost my headset. It's been saying for an hour it was gonna shut off on me and it finally did. I just have to turn it up a little bit.
You actually sound better now, I think.
Really? My headset's usually really clear.
No, it was fine. It was louder.
Yeah, well, because it's sitting right there, right? You should hear it when I have my mask on and you have like everything's just contained.
Mm.
Anyway, I won't be able to do it this week, but I'll try to get down there and take a look. But if I'm not opposed of meeting a little bit earlier too, and I'm also not opposed of not going till 9 o'clock. But yeah, I mean, we haven't seen each other and how long in person. If it's warm and we can get somewhere, I thought it might be something that's nice. I'm not opposed to doing it on the common either. I just think it's pretty loud there with the traffic.
It is.
So, okay, I'll try to get down and see it. And then we'll go from there. And if not, then I guess I can send out a note, or we could just plan on continuing virtual until, or if we see a change. I don't feel like going into a building and wearing a mask for 3 hours after, like, I don't typically have to do it during the day while I'm working, but when I'm out with the kids, I'm doing it.
I will if I have to, but given
Right.
the alternative,
Right.
this is I'm used to this now. I've been doing this longer virtually than I had in person. So it's great. Everything, my desk is here, my computer's here. Anything I ever want to pull up is right here. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
spoiled now.
That's right. All the other meetings are in hybrid, right?
I don't know what the other meetings are doing, Peter. Some people might be having all in-person meetings. I'm not sure.
Yep, the Board of Select meetings are hybrid, the planning board meetings hybrid, the water sewer meeting is hybrid, right?
Great, thank you. Okay, so
So
I'll look into that. Our next meeting right now is slated for the 25th. Are there any agenda? Actually, that might be a good one, just to have the water sewer guys just come and sit and chat. Right? Because that might be a more inviting atmosphere.
They can print out the maps. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just a heads up, I cannot be there for the 25th. I'll be on vacation. So someone might want to take minutes that day.
I'm on vacation the one after that, Labor Day week.
Hey, do they have any lights in that outside area, outside the water department?
I don't know that I've ever been to the water department. I've been to the treatment plant.
I thought they had lights like right outside, right in front of the building.
I don't know. You want to look into it and then just let me
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I
We'll
can. Yep.
figure something out. I mean, I have some like lanterns that you kind of open up and it's real bright. Like I don't mind bringing lights or something too. I can even bring my, like the torches that with the mosquito repellent and just set them up around. You get pretty good light from those.
Tiki
I don't
torches?
mind having it at my house. I just don't want to post my address online, which we would have to do. Not like not like people couldn't find it. So,
Yeah, I think
okay.
it has to be like a town owns public space, right? Of some sort.
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Oh, actually, no, I don't actually, I took
I
that
think
back.
it's just as long as the
doesn't.
public has access.
Yeah, right.
Can you imagine? We have an EDC meeting, somebody finds out it's at another person's house and we have like 50 people who come. Do we want to switch the meeting to the week in between?
Don't do it for
No.
me.
No, I just let's just stay on the
Next
same
week?
schedule.
Okay, I'm just asking.
I mean, if we need another one, we can fill it in, but
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not positive. So we're driving down to Florida next Wednesday to move Emma in, and then I think we should be coming back by the following Wednesday, by that date. But it all kind of lots up in the air right now, so.
Okay, let us know. I mean, I'll
Okay.
just need to make sure we have quorum.
Okay,
If we don't, then we'll just cancel.
And I'll make sure that I have some minutes for you guys to review too. By then.
If you do that, then yeah, that's fine. We just have to review before we get there if we're gonna be outside.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to print them and come.
Right.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys. Nice chatting. Hope you guys have at least been enjoying some of the summer. I know we've had crappy weather, very crappy weather. But we'll see you, not you, Denise, have a great vacation, but hopefully the rest of you guys on the 25th.
Good night, Renee, Cindy, and Lauren.
Hang tight,
Denise. We'll
Peter,
see you
hang
all on the
tight, Peter,
25th.
Peter, hang
hey,
tight.
Peter.
Okay,
hey guys.
wait, we gotta vote on this.
Oh,
Now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second,
Laura,
Yes.
Sandy,
yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes, and we are adjourned at 9:48 PM. Thank you again, guys.
Good night, everyone. Good night,
Night.
Renee, and Cindy, and Lauren, Denise. Good
Good
night.
night.
Night.